in November of 1995, I was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia, and I underwent like intense chemotherapy treatments because back then that's what they did. They just blasted you with chemo. They didn't really know how to treat it. So I started undergoing intrathecal chemotherapy, which is they do a spinal tap and inject chemotherapy into your spinal fluid, because with leukemia, it is cancer of the blood. So it could get to the brain. So they do these spinal taps and inject chemo into your spinal fluid to kill any cancer cells that could get to your brain. Well, after, I don't know, it felt like several of these, spinal taps I had. And then like, I would get one every week along with a bone marrow test. Like it was intense. And I remember they were getting me ready to start radiation on my brain. And I was sitting with my mom in the radiology center. They tattooed me. They just put a little black mark on my chin. So when they do the radiation, it's to the exact spot every time, because like they're killing tissue when they're doing it. It's got to be very precise. So I'm sitting there waiting for my first round of radiation, and all of a sudden, like I couldn't hold my head up, and I couldn't hold my arms, started going dead, and my left leg, like my whole left thigh kind of went out. And I looked over at my mom and I'm like, I don't feel good, something's wrong. And she immediately, like she said, it looked like I was having a stroke. My mouth was drooping. She went and got the nurse. They rushed me back to my room. My speech was slurred a bit, so I could kind of talk. And I remember my oncologist rushing in, and he was just looking at me like he didn't know what the hell just happened. Like this was a very rare adverse reaction. They didn't know what it was. And I looked at him and I said, am I going to die? Like, and I'm 13 years old. You never want to see your doctor looking at you like, holy shit. So I asked him that, and he goes, I don't know. So at that moment, I'm like, this is it. This must be it. I just kind of embraced whatever came next. I wasn't afraid. I just embraced it. And somehow I got everything back. Like I was able to get my left side back. They gave me the okay to eat because I had lost my gag reflex. So they weren't letting me eat by mouth. And so they let me, and I was okay. You know, I was sitting there and I remember I was watching a movie, Stand By Me, with my dad, and I'm eating my lunch and everything had come back. Everything was good. And then all of a sudden I went to swallow a carrot and I almost choked. And I looked at my dad and I knew what was coming. I said, like, he said I just sounded like I was crying, but I was so scared. And then I was out. So the chemotherapy ended up attacking my brain even more, and it threw me into a vegetative state. So then I was like really gone. Like I was like this, it like attacked my whole brain. I had a serious brain injury from it. But the problem was I was fully aware during this. So my body wasn't there, but my mind was fully clear. And so when I was awake, I just would cry and cry. Because my parents said I would just cry. There'd be tears coming in, because like in my mind, I'm like, I'm never coming out of this. Like, this is going to be my life now. Like, I can't communicate. I can't use my body. This is it. Like, but I would fall into unconscious states where I was in a peaceful darkness. I wasn't scared. It was the void. Like I was it just felt like such a deep, profound sleep, but it wasn't scary to me. Very peaceful and loving. And then I woke up and my entire family was around my bed saying goodbye to me. Like, I'm talking aunts, uncles, grandmothers. My grandfathers had passed at that point already. And I had no doubt in my mind that they were there too. Everybody, because the doctor said that she's not coming out of this. Like, this is it for her. And I remember like looking at everybody and I could feel their fear. Like, I just felt how scared they were. And I remember thinking, guys, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. And I even started looking up at like, what are they giving me? I'm just really tired. Like, I was not aware of what I looked like or my body. I was not aware of it all. I just was like, I knew I'd be fine. And I was like, I came out of that slowly. I mean, like, I woke up and I came back and like my speech took a minute to come back. And like, you know, I kind of had to work a little bit to get some of this stuff back, but I spent 3 days in a full-blown vegetative state and popped out of it on my own. Like, the doctors were like, holy shit, like that was a miracle, because there was, at that time, there was 8 other cases in the entire world of that type of adverse effect to that chemo treatment. They called it leukodystrophy back then. Now they call it, methotrexate induced leukoencephalopathy. It's like a very long name now, but they didn't really have a name for it back then. The 8 cases of the kids who had that happen to them, they never came out of it. So the doctors are like, that's a miracle that she's here. And I'll tell you what, I had so many doctors come in to like see me. I was like, I must be like a freak of nature because so many doctors are like, how did you come out of that? You know? And after that, I just was very intuitive. And like my father would even say, I always knew what to do for myself. I kind of tucked that away, that experience away for years, because as beautiful as this spiritual experience it was very traumatic physically. So like that happens in childhood trauma, you tuck it away. Like that's how, and then you move on and it comes back when you're ready to deal with it. Well, I had a loved one pass away in 2014 suddenly, and her death just brought me to my knees. Like, I was questioning everything, like dark night of the soul completely. You know, the 20 years, it was 20 years that had passed, and I had not really remembered or processed what happened to me. But the funny part is, in that 20-year span, I ended up getting a job working in the morgue. And mind you, I didn't remember what truly happened to me. I just knew I was here to help people. But like, what are the chances that I'd land a job working with a medical examiner in my county, working with the dead? And like, I always knew that those souls were in a better place. Sometimes I could literally feel them there. And anybody who works with the dead can tell you that it's palpable. There are some people who pass away traumatically and they're a little confused at first, so they don't cross right over. So they kind of linger for a minute, and I just would, like, if it was some traumatic events, I would always try to like learn a lesson from what happened from them, just so they didn't die in vain. Like, I will learn your lesson for you, go to the light. Like, and the job was a bit morbid, but because of my experience, I knew that like they're in a better place. They're going to a better place. Like, so I guess that's why I was able to like work with the dead, because some people would never be able to do that job. But then, like I said, I became a nurse. I'm a home health nurse. I have worked hospice cases. I work in pediatric home health right now. And some of the cases I work with are pretty much end of life. You know, you're making that child comfortable until their time comes. And like, I was a home health nurse before my loved one passed away. And I mean, I fell into such a deep depression when she passed away, because I could not understand how God would take her from her kids. I couldn't understand, like, it made me mad at God. And then I would just like, I went inward. It was like total dark night of the soul. It woke me up to a lot more spiritually. And with her passing, came back the memory of what happened to me. So like, it was like, it had to come back, because God was like, listen, this is like such a second chance that you had, it just wasn't your time. It was her time, type of thing, so, and I'll never know why, like, she passed. It was just her time, I guess. But with, her passing and those memories coming back from what I experienced, it was like the right time that the memory came back. And I do think that people's memories you'll have like a breakthrough when you need it most. Like, I needed that most. I needed to remember what happened to me and how lucky I am to be talking and walking and living my nice life independently, because really it could be so different for me. You know what I mean? And interestingly enough, I had a visitation, and from that spiritual experience, like 2 months later, I got pregnant naturally with my son, who I was told I was probably infertile because I had chemotherapy in my childhood, and me and my husband at the time had tried for probably 8 years. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like, this is an angel in front of me. Like, it was like an out of body experience. And I had one before. After I had my near-death experience, I remember I was sleeping on the couch and I woke up on the ceiling looking down, and I could see my mom, and I don't know what happened, but I was like young. So I never thought anything of the things I went through when I was younger. I was just like, whatever, like, if I was older, I might question it more. But like, all these memories came rushing back. And I think like it really healed me at like a core level. And then boom, I got pregnant with this kid that I was told I'd probably never get to. It was just the way it happened. And I was even getting signs from him. I had a loved one go to a medium. She came back and told me, you're going to have a baby boy. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. This was like a year and a half before I ever conceived. And I'm like, maybe, I don't really know. Like, I was told I couldn't. This has not happened. So we'll see. Then I started to get signs from my son. Like, I had a vision of him at 20 weeks, a 20-week fetus. And I just knew, I'm like, he's coming. Like, because your children's souls choose you long before they incarnate, right? So I had this sign, and I knew he was coming. And then I got pregnant, and like, I couldn't even, and I'm Irish and Scottish descent. So it was interesting because I took the test on St. Paddy's Day after seeing a double rainbow, and it was the first positive pregnancy test I ever got. He was born on All Saints Day on November 1st. Like, it was just, I see signs like that. Those are signs to me of like, welcome to where you did, like, being a mother is heaven on earth for me, because I never thought I'd get there. This is the one thing that I never thought I'd get to. And like, that I prayed for forever. Like, when I was told as a child that I may not ever be able to have a kid, that crushed me. Like, that's all I ever wanted. So to get to being pregnant and just becoming a mother has been so, that motherly intuition. I already had the intuition from like my experiences, but that boosted it, becoming a mother. So it's like, I'm a Reiki nurse. So I worked energy medicine into my nursing practice, because I feel that like God gave me my son, and that was the biggest gift I've ever wanted, ever asked for. So like, it is my job to really like channel anything that God needs, like spiritual messages, whatever, like anything God needs, like I'm here. So like, that's why I worked energy medicine into my nursing practice. And I'll tell you what, it's been such a blessing. Like, I've been able to help so many, most of my patients are kids. So they respond well to Reiki or any kind of energy medicine. They're very open. And I've like, even some of the parents are amazed at how well it works. So that's my whole, deal. Like, from, it's been 25 years since my near-death experience, but I've had so many other experiences, and it wasn't even, and it sounds weird, but I didn't realize that people didn't know things. Like, people thought this was it. Like, what the hell? Are you crazy? No, this is not it. So, when you shift your mind into thinking into the more of a broad spectrum, that like, this is just a journey and it's very short, and you're here to learn and love and be the light and love each other and be there for each other, and you're just here to learn lessons. It can shift your mind into being way more open to your own intuition and your own spiritual guides. So that's kind of what I do now, is kind of just help people to open their minds and their hearts, and and tap into their own guidance, because we all have it. So
it sounds, your near-death experience itself doesn't sound like your standard. I don't know how much you've looked into the near-death phenomena in general as an overview, but generally, it doesn't sound like you had a lot of the common experiences, like the tunnel and the meeting deceased relatives.
Yeah, I didn't, like, that was the thing. I didn't have that experience, but I spoke to a lot of other near-death experiencers who ended up just in the void. And like, I'm wondering, like, if I had, because I kept falling in and out of consciousness. And when I was out, I was just in a peaceful darkness, floating around, like, peaceful. And when I come back, it was like kind of scary, because I was like, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. But then I spoke to other near-death experiencers who experienced the void as well. And like, they saw nothing but blackness, nothing but darkness. They didn't see light. I felt the light. And like, that's the thing, is my intuition, my like clairsentience is very strong. Like, I have all the clairs, but like strongest. And that was the thing too. Right before I got pregnant, I felt pregnant. I was like, how the frick can I feel? I've never been pregnant. How could I feel pregnant? And like, I would even say to my husband, like, this is so weird. How can I feel pregnant? But like, it was coming. And like, that's the thing, these feelings I pay attention to, it's my intuition. Like, so I never ignore this stuff. But yeah, no, I didn't have the typical, bright light. And I mean, like I said, later on in life, I did have like a visitation of an angel come hug me. I woke up from that experience, and it was like an out-of-body experience. So I woke up like, holy shit. Like, I was just actually touched by an angel. Like, I felt peace come down my whole body. I was crying because I knew it was real. And within 2 months of that, I was pregnant with my son. It was like naturally, with no medical intervention, which is crazy, because like, I was told I was like infertile. So I just started to follow my intuition, like what herbs to take, meditations to do, like all of these things that, like, your intuition's there to guide you to your dreams, right? So like, that was my dream. And it just, yeah, but no, I didn't really have that typical experience. But like some people say that'd be scary, like being in the dark, being in nothing but darkness. But even to this day, I love being in the dark. Like, I love my room completely dark. It makes me peaceful because it brings me back to that place. And like, I've always known since then that, so I'm here to help people, and I've always done that. That death doesn't really exist. Even working in the morgue, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't have your energy, you are just a body, right? You are your energy, because like the body is left behind, you go to a different place. Like, that just even working with the dead people just helped me to, I don't know, I have no fear of death whatsoever. I actually I love life. I want to live life, but I look forward to that when that time comes, that transition, you know?
Yeah. I want to get back to your experience in the morgue in a minute, but I want to first look at, go back to your actual experience itself, because a good friend of mine, Jeff Hall, he's a practitioner of the, I don't know if you know it, the, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a certain practice that they use using movement, Alexander technique.
Okay.
I don't know if you know it, but it's one that they use. They move in a certain way to kind of cure or help with ailments. And he had a near-death experience, but he had it in a certain way that he didn't remember any actual experience, but he experienced the after effects of it, and is certainly very aware of the after effects without having memory of the experience itself.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you say, because you described the void as kind of a state of deep sleep. Now, for most of us, deep sleep is not something that's remembered, because apparently there seems to be no consciousness for us at that time. So how would you compare that void experience to your standard natural deep sleep state?
I would say it's more peaceful. I mean, when you fall into deep sleep, you're at rest, but this was complete and utter peace. I don't know if I can truly describe it with words. I felt like I was just floating, through space, just floating. When I fall into deep sleep, first of all, usually you're not aware of it. Or I guess you could be if I don't know how to describe it fully. What the difference was, except for when I woke up from this vegetative state, I was just aware that I'd be fine. I knew I'd be okay. There could very well be other parts of my experience that just haven't come back yet, because it was in childhood. And, I was raised Catholic, but at that point, I did some CCD and stuff. So what I was being raised to believe had no impact on my experience. My experience to some people is boring. It wasn't to me, but, because a lot of people do. They see the light, they see angels, they see all this. And I'm just that's weird. I didn't have that, but I still felt the love, and I felt like I was the light. And I'll tell you, when I came out of that, I just was I felt like I had to do good, because wherever I was, I wanted to go back to. And it shifted me my entire life. And I was a child. So it started me on my journey to helping people. But to describe between it would be hard for me to describe that.
I mean, the fact that you say that you felt like you were floating in darkness, that tells me straight away that it wasn't anything really like deep sleep, because there was awareness there. I mean, the only way... I was
totally aware of the darkness that I was in, but it wasn't scary at all.
Because, I mean, the way most people describe or experience deep sleep is a dream, another dream, and then awake. And somewhere in between there, you've been no dream and no awareness that we can remember.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't dream a lot. Even now, my intuitive hits come at me in my waking life. I dream a little bit more now, because I think there's a lot more energy coming through the planet, and people are having more vivid dreams. So it's actually, I've been dreaming more lately, but typically I don't dream a lot. Which is interesting. I mean, I almost feel like I shift back and forth. It's really, or I just don't remember my dreams. That could be
could be another thing. Yeah. I mean, most people, and researchers of dreams and all that, will agree that it's generally experienced as the mind kind of recycling information that's been stored through overthinking or suppressed emotion or whatever. So it could be that if you're that spiritually evolved, that there is much less kind of ruminating on thoughts and emotions, because you just
I never had nightmares.
No.
Like maybe here or there. I like never have nightmares.
Yeah. So
but I'm very protective of the space that I sleep in. I smudge, I do, protection rituals and whatnot, because like that space that you sleep in, I feel should be very well protected, because you're going to a different state, right? So spiritually speaking, you want to protect yourself when you're not in your body, because you're really not in your body. You go off, to dreamland. So I don't know, that could have something to do with it. Like I said, like the spiritual awareness started when I was so young. I've always followed my intuition, and I've never thought twice about like other people don't do that. Like what? Because it started at such a young age.
Yeah, it's been your nature.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just, some people think I'm a little nuts with like the way I do things, but I'm like, I don't know, it works. You know what I'm saying? So I help a lot of people with it.
Yeah, I mean, anything's nuts to people that don't understand what
right.
you're talking
Eventually,
about.
But everybody gets there in their own time. So I just say, okay, I'm here if you need me, because it takes people, it's in their own time that they're going to experience, they're on their own spiritual journey. So it's not for me to push anything on anybody. If they don't believe it, okay, it's, I'm here if you ever need me, but otherwise,
So to look at the experience from a justly objective point of view, what makes you think that this experience was spiritual in nature and wasn't kind of a result of hospital drugs or the state of your brain at the time causing hallucination and various things like that?
Well, considering the doctors said they did nothing to wake me up because they didn't know what to do. They wouldn't sedate me, they said, because I even had a spinal tap without sedation, because they were afraid. They didn't know where I was consciously. So they were afraid to put me under and give me any kind of drug like that could affect me. So I know that there was no drugs involved. They weren't giving me anything. They were afraid they could put me into a deeper state. And then so I know there wasn't drugs involved. And the doctor said like it was a legitimate miracle that I just popped up, woke up.
Did they not even give you anything,
right
any painkillers or anything like that?
No, they would not.
Straight.
No, and that was my parents said, and I actually do remember. I remember like the pressure of the doctor doing the spinal tap, because as a child, like they give Versed usually for spinal taps, they knock you out. It's conscious sedation, but because I was in this in-between state and they had no clue like what would happen if they gave me this drug. Is it going to push me further down into like an unconscious state? Could it make it worse? So they would not give me any painkillers. So I like remember laying there on my side, the doctor doing it. I could feel him pushing. I could feel everything. My dad was in there and he said tears were just running out of my eyes. I was crying, and there was like nothing they can do. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. So I mean, like I literally have contractures in my arms from being in, it was a severe brain injury. Like, so to wake up from that, and here I am today. Right. Like they did not think, and the fact that they thought I wasn't understanding anything. My body did not work. My mind was perfectly clear. That's why I was crying, because I was thinking, oh my God, I'm never coming out of this. This is going to be my life. And then at that point, I was just like, death didn't scare me at that point. Like, what's scarier than death? Being stuck in your body for the rest of your life, fully aware. Like that's more scary than death. Right then and there, I knew I was not my body. My body didn't work, but my mind was perfectly clear. I knew everything I wanted to say. I was aware of everybody in the room, what they were saying, it was just like I was hyper aware to everything. So, when I fully came out of that, like even the doctors are like, that's a miracle. Like they said they didn't do anything because they didn't know anything to do. I was only the 8th case in the world at that point with that reaction, and none of the other kids came out of it. So I don't know. And it was only 3 days I was out. It felt, it didn't feel I was like in a different place. It could have been 15 years and I wouldn't have even known. So it would have felt like 3 days.
That's a common experience. Time isn't experienced the same way.
Right. Even now to this day, I have to constantly look at a clock because I will lose track of time. I'm constantly like, there is no space or time with me. Like I could be meditating and I wake up and it's like an hour's passed and I felt like 5 minutes, you know, like it's like I'm always in that kind of meditative state where time doesn't exist. So I constantly have to check the time because time's a man-made construct. There really is no time, you know?
Do you know which part of your brain was damaged when you were in this vegetative state?
I am not sure. Basically, how the doctors described it was it shorted my brain out. I don't really know if they could. I really don't know if they understood what exactly happened. But, you know, I believe it was some cerebellum damage. Even when I got Reiki, which my Reiki master, she said she can literally feel different energy back here. And that it would be if the way, so as a nurse, like the way that my body presented, that's a brainstem injury. So like even just how my body reacted, it was brainstem. So because that it's, you know, the corticate posture that was brainstem. And I remember my hands like this. I remember waking up here and there and looking down and just being confused. Like, why are my hands like that? Like I was so unaware of my body. It was just, I mean, probably better that I was unaware of my body. Like, honestly, it's probably better that I was a kid because they didn't really tell me a whole lot of the bad stuff. You know what I mean? When you work with kids, try to keep positive. You know, I work with kids to this day, you know, and part of that is the amazing care I got from the doctors and nurses. I actually take a lot of neuro cases because I was there. You know, I was in that state where people thought I wasn't aware, but I was. So all these kids that I take care of that have the neurological issues who could be in, you know, some of them are in like vegetative states. I talk to them. I do Reiki on them. I, you know, let them know everything I'm doing when I'm doing it. And like, I learn from the best because that's how my doctors and nurses took care of me when I was in this place that they weren't aware or sure if I was there. Like I was half in, half out. So basically I was straddling the worlds. Like I had 1 foot in the physical, 1 foot in the afterlife. And I was just like, shit, like honestly, those memories that came back, it was like they came back at the perfect time when God knew what to do with them, which is talk about it, to let people know what happened to me. Miracles happen every day. If you wake up in the morning, it's a miracle, you know, like they happen every day. But me and my son are like miracles. So, and I teach him certain healing techniques because I feel like God gave me this child and I'm going to show him, like, even my intention of having a kid was to, you know, like raise a healer. Like I want him to be a healer one day, no matter what he does. And everybody comes in contact with, he's like the little light of my life. Like he's such a beautiful little soul. And like, I'm blessed to be his mother, and it just shifting into motherhood really amplified my intuition, like big time. And it was funny how I had to remember what I'd been through, process it, and then I got more gifts from it, you know, and that's how you like integrate these experiences into your life. But yeah, mine was, like I said, I don't know, some people might think it was a boring experience. It just like the physical side of it where, I mean, my life could be so different right now. I could be, you know, not able to talk, walk, eat, take care of myself. Like when I look at it like that, I'm blessed. And trust me, my body's got a lot of issues from that. Like I've had 12 surgeries. I've had a lot of adverse reactions to the chemo that I had to continue the protocol with. They never did do this is the other thing. They never did do radiation on my brain. And they said that if they had done that first round of radiation, it would have burned the chemotherapy into my brain, and I never would have come out of that state. So the fact that that happened in the waiting room, I was the next patient to go in to have my first rounds of radiation to my brain. I mean, right after when that happened, and I went back to my room, and my doctor talked to me and everything. And I was sitting there, and I finally did start to come out of that state. And they told me that. I was like, something just saved me. Like, God just saved me. Like, and that epiphany helped me because I had like a double experience. Because then I went out even further, right? Like, after that epiphany of like, something just saved me. Like, how close was that? A few minutes later, if that reaction didn't happen when it happened, I wouldn't be here, like talking to you. So that timing of divine timing was so perfect. That like blew my mind. Okay. So I was like, wow, something just saved me. And then within hours, I was in a vegetative state. And like, I knew I wasn't alone. I wasn't afraid because I had just already had that epiphany. And, and I was 13 years old, you know, so it has led me my whole life to care for people, like my whole life. And I've always been a happy-go-lucky person. I love to laugh and have fun because like, I truly know that like, this is a journey. And like, I had such a major second chance at life. And now God gave me my son. So like, I'm legitimately, this is my heaven on earth, having a baby. That was it. That's all I ever wanted. And I'm here. So now it's like, I'm being guided to talk more about my experiences and come out more with, you know, the things I've been through, because these experiences and hearing this stuff, it could be healing to people. And like, this is the time to heal. So
you mentioned God. What's your interpretation of what God is? I mean, do you believe God is in a religious Christian version, or do you believe God is in the esoteric, more spiritual version? Or how would you define God?
Okay, so God to me is, you know, sometimes we refer to God as He. When I say He, I think God is the creator of everything. I don't think it's just a masculine energy. I think it's feminine and masculine balanced. I think each religion has set up their own vision of what God is, and they all have their own, and that's fine. Everybody should believe in something. I don't really subscribe too much to religion. Like, I'm way more just spiritual, more like with energies and whatnot. But like, God to me is the creator of all, right? So there is God, and then there's other energies that have worked with God and work with humans. Like, so like, for instance, I'm not religious. I was raised Catholic, right? I mean, well, semi-raised, because like, that experience happened at 13 years old. I never went to church after that. I never felt like I had to be in a church. I mean, like, God performed a freaking miracle for me in my hospital bed. I knew God was with me and I could talk to him at any time. I didn't have to be in a church. But I like, when I do Reiki, when I do any kind of energy healing, I work with Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary. So that's very much Catholicism, you know, like Jesus. But like, these are energies. They're energies, right? They just have names. You're just naming an energy. Like, that's how I feel. But like I said, I think that the basis of everything is spirituality, and then each, like, you know, culture does it their own way, and they come up with their own thing on how to explain, and, you know, how people can follow, because like, as humans, we need description, we need labels, like, unfortunately. And like, I don't like labels, but it truly is. They're just names of energies.
How would you define energy in that sense, if you could?
Energy to me would be, how can I describe this? Like if I work with, I've stepped down like the priestess path, Mary Magdalene priestess. So I became initiated into that. Her Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary energy that I've been working with is so intense. Like I do these meditations and I can feel my whole body buzzing. It's such a feeling of love. Like it's love energy. These healing energies are love. And I know some people in religion are like, it's kind of evil. Like, how do you know it's not a bad energy? Well, because negative entities or energies cannot heal. They're at such a low vibration. So energy is vibration. Like, yes, I am fully aware of when there is a negative entity or energy around me, and I know how to protect myself from it or tell it to go to the light, whatever. But like when there is such a difference between something like that and a high vibrating healing energy, that's what will heal you. So energy healers are aware of those differences in vibrations. You can feel them. It's palpable. So it's a vibration. That's energy.
See, that's quite difficult for me to get my head around, because to me vibration, and I'm sure to most people vibration, they think of just sound vibrating, right. Something vibrating. And if your body vibrates, you don't think of that as healing or as doing anything other than just making you vibrate. Like if you're standing...
Well, it's also intention. You know what I mean? You're using certain energies with intention. So like, I know you would think of, like you said, the table vibrating, like that's not healing, but these are, like I said, they're energies from another place. It's not like a physical energy. Like, have you ever had your earring? You have buzzing in your ear.
Yeah.
That's a download of an energy going to your intuition to guide you somewhere. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like these type of, like, it'll have a different vibration or frequency to it. Right? So like, I know it's a little deep and like, it can be a little confusing, but it's not necessarily a physical vibration, except for like it, when I do these meditations for this like priestess course that I'm taking, or I'm an initiated priestess, like the vibration is felt through my entire nervous system because I'm listening to something coming through, right? So it is totally palpable and it's amazing. Like that type of energy, like I said, it's just an energy with a name, with a label. It's a frequency with a label, like, and it's from the beyond, like the higher up, like normally, like when you have to be in a high place for the other side to come to you, because they're at such a high vibrating rate that when you're in your deep dark depression and your vibe is low, they can't get to you, but they're always there with you, like. So when you start coming out of that and you feel better and your vibes raise and you're happier and more loving, that's when they can come through and you'll see more, stuff. Like, so it's a frequency or vibration.
Would you say then that different emotions and different mind states are different kind of levels of vibration, higher and lower, depending on if they're pleasurable or not so?
Yes. Like,
right. So what would you say to those then that would say that we know that these are all chemicals, just dopamine released by our brain and cortisol and things like that? There's no
like it's a neurochemical reaction.
Yeah,
and that's
there's no spirituality necessary.
Okay, so here's my thing to that. Then explain the after effects. Explain the after effects. It's not a neurochemical reaction. It's an energetic shift out of your body. Like it's an energy. It's something with your energy, because when you come back, you have after effects. Like, and people might not want to believe your after effects, but like they're there. And like you were saying about your one friend, he had these after effects and didn't even know he had them until one day he realized he had them. That's the same with me. I didn't really understand what I had. And like, I was literally guided to work with the dead. Like, like that's crazy, you know, because I was not afraid of death at all. So I would say, you know, people could think what they want to think, but a neurochemical reaction is not going to make your, like, have these after effects where your intuition is on point. You know what I mean? It's an energetic reaction more than a neurochemical reaction. So I know I've seen people like mention that, you know, maybe it's DMT releasing in your brain. Listen,
that's a bit of a myth, that is.
Right, but that's the thing is, people can go, you know, take DMT and they have a profound spiritual experience, but do they have the after effects that the person that had the NDE has? Not usually. You might be a little more in tune, but I don't know, like these after effects that come along with these NDEs, to me, that's proof that it's an energetic shift, not a neurochemical shift. You know, like I was unconscious. So, I mean, like, I guess people would say, well, you weren't brain dead, which I wasn't. Like, I wasn't on a ventilator and stuff, but I still had this profound experience. I had a healing, woke up out of a state that I shouldn't have. I mean, doctors were like, you're a miracle. That's a miracle. And like, it's, you know, maybe it healed some of those doctors. Like, yeah, I also looked at it like that, like as a nurse, and I've had this experience. I like to share it with doctors because you know what? They are healers and they need to believe that there's something beyond that's helping them to heal because they're healers, you know?
So one interesting question then. Why do you think you were given that healing and the other 8 that were currently in that state weren't?
I don't know, you know, and it makes me, even when I have my patients who are in that state, I kind of like, why do you do this, God? Why do you make people suffer? You know, I love God and I'm here to do whatever God needs me to do. But that doesn't mean I understand it. I will never understand why, you know, my loved one had to die. I will never understand why people suffer in these states. And it, you know, it's like, well, even just being a cancer survivor, there's a whole lot of like survivor guilt, especially you see a friend or somebody that you made and then they end up dying of cancer and you're alive. Like, why did I live? So there's a whole lot of that. And honestly, it took me 20 years to realize like why I did live. And like, it is my son, you know, he is why I survived. And I always knew I'd get to him, no matter how many doctors told me I wouldn't, or I might not because they thought I was infertile. I just always brushed them off because you know what? They also thought I wasn't going to survive what I survived. So a new doctor's, you're not God. You don't know everything. And it was like he was my guiding light. He got me through so much of my darkness. And I finally got to meet him and hold him. And he's like the light of my life. So now that I'm here and I'm a mother, like I see why I survived. But I had questioned that for years. Like, I'm in pain all day, every day, because I have all these issues. You know, anxiety, depression, everything that comes along with trauma, you know what I mean? So it makes me like wonder, why am I here still? Like, what is my purpose? And then I got to my son. So, and now I know that is my purpose, but I will never understand why some people have to suffer, why I came out of that and the other 8 didn't, or the other 7. Even as a nurse, it breaks my heart to see my patients suffer. And I just know that I'm there to help them, to comfort them. You know, I love them with all of my heart, and I give them all of me. I do Reiki, anything I could do to comfort them, I'm there. So I look at it like I was there, and I treat them how I would want to be treated, because I was in their place at one point. So, but yeah, I don't know. That question is a good one, but I guess God only knows why I survived and others didn't, or they didn't come out of the state. You know.
So then you went to work in the morgue, and you say that you, I believe you connected to the spirits of those that have died in order to. How did you experience that connection?
I had one like profound one that was it, like even going back to it. So there was one case, the guy had terminal lung cancer, and he went into his backyard and he shot himself because he couldn't take the pain anymore. He was terminal, he couldn't take it. In his suicide note, he said he did that so nobody'd have to clean up after him. I had cancer. I knew where this man was, like spiritually. I knew where he was. I'd been there. Like, you just want to die. There are times where you're in so much pain physically, you just want it to go away. Just take me. I would scream, like, and I was all suited up, ready to do this autopsy, sheriffs around, medical examiner. And it was almost like nobody was there. I put my hand out on this man's arm, and I just was empathizing with him so heavily. It messed me up. And then I had a sheriff come over and whisper in my ear, like, you have to disconnect from these cases or you're going to lose your mind, because it was a lot of traumatic stuff. And I was like, okay, take it back, bring it back. But like, when I did that, like, I saw what he did. I saw it. And I was just like, oh my, I ended up, when I, like, at the end of the autopsy, you have to sew the body up. It's kind of gross and gory, but I ended up sticking myself with the sewing needle because I was so just distraught.
Not with it, yeah.
And I mean, then I had to go through like a year worth of like HIV testing. That was fun. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. But I just was so out of it, and I could feel that man's presence, because and like, seriously, after that, I don't really believe in suicide, but after that case, it changed my mind on medically assisted suicide or doctor assisted suicide. That man should not have had to die like that. He should not have had to die alone. He should not have had to suffer. Like, I do believe if a person's terminal, they should be able to pass on in their way, medically assisted. I do believe that now, and that case shifted my mind. And I don't know, some people might not agree with that, but that man should not have had to die like that. That was horrible. And but I could feel him there. And so what I did was I learned from his lesson, because ultimately it was like him telling me, don't ever get here. Don't ever get to the place I got. So I felt like, okay, I'll learn his lesson. I will never go where he went with this. And like, if the lesson's learned, he didn't die in vain. There were other cases that I had like this, where it was like just a palpable feel of a soul in the room because they died traumatically. This was like, I was working with the medical examiner. So these were suicides, homicides, car accidents, traumatic, like abrupt deaths. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So it was like crazy though, because at that point I had not even remembered what I went through. So to be guided to work in the morgue, I worked in the morgue for 5 years. And so I was like a death midwife. It was almost like I was there to keep a sacred space for these souls who maybe were just confused about where they were, what happened. Because that can definitely happen if somebody dies traumatically.
Yeah, which would make sense as to why you'd only sense them if it was a traumatic death, because the soul would apparently still be with the body and hadn't been able to move on.
Right, because they're just in shock. Like, what happened? Where am I? Like, so me being there, it was not like verbal communication. It was like, it was,
Intuitive.
like mental, yeah, like telepathic. There was no, I wasn't like turning to a spirit and talking. I mean, the doctors and everybody were like,
Yeah, yeah.
you're all right.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, anybody I speak to that works with the dead can confirm that there is a palpable feel of that soul in the room. You can feel it, and sometimes they just need a little guidance to, don't be scared, don't be afraid, cross over to the light. Like, God loves you. It doesn't matter what you did, especially depending on like suicide and the beliefs that they're raised with. Are they going to go to hell? Like, so some souls get trapped, in the in-between, because they're just afraid of what's going to come if they go cross over, which you're going to go to the light. We all go to the light. Okay. Like, there isn't a hell. You may have to go through some soul cleansing and like a little bit more spiritual work to like release everything that brought you to that state of wanting to end your life and ending your life. But like, your angels and guides are there with you. You're not going to hell. Like, so it would just be kind of like a telepathic type of like, I will learn the lesson for you. Now go to the light. Like, just go. So,
so do you think that process of going to the light is the same for the likes of murderers and rapists and Hitlers of the world?
Well, I think those type of people, like I said, they have to go through a more of a spiritual cleanse type of thing before you actually cross into heaven. Or they get sent back to Earth. Maybe they have to go back and do it over again. Like, you didn't learn any lessons if you were that type of a person. So like, it really depends on the person, what they did. I think sometimes people like that do get sent back and they just have to relearn the lessons. Like, you signed a spiritual contract, a soul contract, to learn these lessons. You need to learn all the lessons before you can stay in heaven. Like, that's what I feel is like, those lessons are meant to be learned. You'll just come back until they're learned, because that's what you signed on for. That's what you wanted. And so, once you learn them, then you go fully over, and, we all go to the light. It's just a matter of like being sent back or staying. And I know some people are like, oh my God, I hope I'm not sent back. Like, listen, I wouldn't worry about that too much. Like, even if you were, you wouldn't remember, necessarily, not right away. It's like you
it'd be as if starting again.
But that's like what old souls are. You have kids who have like these abilities, or they just remember past lives. Like, my son comes out with all kinds of weird stuff. Like, he told me one day, oh, grandma's behind you. Grandma Drummond's behind you. And I'm like, I turned around and I didn't see anybody. And then I was like, where is she? She's behind me? He's like, yeah. Like, I was like, okay, does she have anything to say? And he goes, she said she loves you. And I was just like, I love you too, Mom, Graham. She was like my mom. But kids at that age are very open, like very spiritually open. Toddlers, because they don't have that filter. They've not been, taught to repress, or suppress that gift. So when they start coming up with like, oh, I used to live there with my old family. Like, sometimes he'll talk about his old family, and I don't push the issue. Like, I'll let him talk, and if whenever, it'll come out eventually. But I know he's an old soul. Like, I know he's an old soul. So it's interesting to like hear this stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't want people to fear like I'm gonna come back to this earth, because like the earth may be way different by the time you come back. Maybe it'll be like we'll rise and everything will be love and light and peace. And like, we're in a very pivotal time right now. Like, there's a lot going on, because there's a lot of healing that needs to be done to raise the vibration of everybody on the earth, so the earth can rise in the universe. Like, it's all like, we are part of Mother Nature. We're part of the earth. So I think that there's just a big healing going on right now. And that's why a lot of people are stepping into spirituality.
Right. So let's go on to your experience you had after the near-death experience, and afterward, and more with the out-of-body experience, where you said you were lying down and suddenly you were up at the ceiling. Can you describe?
Yeah, I believe that was after I had that near-death experience, and I don't know, because like the time I was home, so it must have been. That's what I mean. The time and space thing. I can't even remember how long it took me to recover from some of these things. Like my speech didn't come right back. I couldn't walk right away. But I was home. So it must have been shortly after this happened. I remember though, I don't know. I think I was hyperventilating. I'm not really sure what was happening with me. But I woke up and I was like on the ceiling looking at my body. I could see my mom over the dining room because she was like up late or something. And I'm just watching this like, what the frick? Am I tripping or something? Like, and I see my mom rush over and sit next to me and like, Jennifer, I'm watching her. And then I wake up and she's there like in my face. So I was like, what the frick? You know, like I said, I never did anything. I never thought twice about that. I was just like, that was weird. But I never lost that either. So then, you know, as I got older, I had like another out-of-body experience, and it took me nothing to believe it because I've already had these other experiences. It's just, they happen when they're supposed to happen. I feel like everybody has some kind of spiritual experience. It's a matter of when it's supposed to come to you, to awaken you, to like, wow, like there's so much more out there, you know? I was a kid and I didn't even think twice about this stuff. I was just like, I was ready to party because I was like, you know, I was a teenager and I did. Like, I loved going out, having friends, going to parties, going to this and that. It's like, I fully embraced life because like, deep down, I knew I just literally danced with death and lived to tell about it. So, but yeah. So,
yeah. So then what happened with the angel when the angel came to visit you?
The angel came and she just hugged me.
Was this
and
when
she
you
had
were,
she had a message.
asleep, or?
No, once again, I was like laying on the couch, and it was around Christmas time, probably 5 years ago. And it's when I was starting to rise out of that deep, dark depression, like dark night of the soul. I was coming out of it. And I went to sleep on the couch. I ended up like waking up in the kitchen, but it wasn't my body. And I remember seeing this angel, this loved one, and she thanked me and she gave me a hug. And I just, first of all, my mind was like, what the hell is happening? Because I knew she was dead. And I'm like, she's right in front of me.
So she was someone that had passed previously from your life?
Yes, right. So I was like, oh my God. And then she hugged me. And the next thing I know, I woke up and I felt peace. Like, I can't even describe it, just pour over me from head all the way down to my toes. And I even tap into that feeling sometimes when I meditate. It was such a peaceful feeling. I just cried and cried and cried. I knew it was her. I knew I'd literally just been hugged by an angel. And within 2 months, I was pregnant.
How did you get yourself to believe that that was a real experience?
The feeling of it. That's how I can gauge things, is when it is an angel, you feel it. You literally feel it. You feel the love coming over you. Like, it's just such a peaceful, loving feeling. And like, even that's how I explain to my clients, like, how to know if this sign that you're getting, pay attention to how you feel. Do you feel peaceful when you see this sign? Then that is a sign. That is like an angel, or that is a passed on loved one. It could be a guide, it's always how I feel. And it was like somebody just like velvety white peacefulness poured over me. It was so, my whole body relaxed. And then it was like, I felt amazing. It felt like really. And then I just started to, like I said, intuitively know what to do for me and myself to get myself, to the point where my body was ready to conceive. And like, even when I was getting to that point of right before I conceived my son, like I said, I had to have like a scan or something. And I remember the ultrasound tech doing the scan, and I looked up at the screen, I saw like a 20-week fetus. And I looked back at her and I'm like, she does not see that. So I just shut up. And I was like, this kid is coming soon. And, even my husband at the time had like a little bit of a sign, and he's not into any of that. So I was like, oh, this kid's coming. Like, and I kept saying like, this is happening. It's going to happen. I would do meditations that I was guided to do, visualizations. It was like so intense, the amount of guidance I was getting to get to this point. And when I got pregnant, I had to like put the ultrasound on the fridge to remind me like, this is real. Like it felt like a dream, because it was a dream. It was my biggest dream ever. Like, you can get a huge job and make a ton of money and figure out a way to get that big house and that nice car and all these materialistic things. But like conceiving a child,
it's a different level.
That's a different level. Like, I really had no control over that. It was going to happen or it wasn't, and when it finally did, it just blew my mind. So, and I did. And then it was like the motherly intuition thing just expanded my intuition. And now it's just, I've been guided to like the energy healing side and, bringing it into my nursing practice. Cause I honestly think that Western medicine is missing that. I think if Western medicine was a little more integrative, where they, worked with the energy field and the physical field, we'd have a lot better of it, health in this country, or in the world.
I plan to integrate a lot of the spirituality stuff that I've learned into when I'm trained as a cognitive behavioural therapist for anxiety and depression.
Yes.
And I plan to integrate a lot of that into that as well.
Yes.
Because I think it does benefit hugely to question.
It really does. I mean, it just you don't feel so alone, because like, if you can literally see signs, or that type of spirituality, like, you can ask for a sign, you'll see it. You ask specific, and like, you can talk to whatever pass on loved one you miss and ask for a sign, and like, it kind of, once you start seeing these things and you're more in tune with your intuition and you're open to this stuff more, that's when, you're going to see these signs. And when you see them, you're going to feel love. And it's going to do? Oxytocin. So now your body's going to flip into that relaxed healing state, because when you feel this stuff, it's going to release neurochemical reactions too. Just like when you have an anxiety attack, you know what I mean? It's cortisol, it's fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and like, I even, like, I run a page on Facebook, Mystical Mama, and I do a lot of like, especially this time of the year, anxiety is high, and then you add this COVID thing and it makes it worse. So like, just how to kind of nip anxiety in the bud before it gets to a full blown attack, like with breath. Just focus on your breath, and like, some people, it's like, well, that's not going to work, but like, if you don't believe it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Don't tell yourself that. Just try to bring yourself out of your head into your body. So yeah, the spirituality works great, because then you're not just working with the mind and the body, you're bringing the spirit in, and that's when your intuition's going to open. And
I mean, it's not just a case of bringing the spirit in either. I mean, you could do that through religion, but I would never use religion, because I think, spirituality is a great tool to use as a way of kind of looking at and understanding your own mind and your own state of being. And
Absolutely.
it sparks you to kind of look into this stuff a bit more deeply. You know, I mean, I was always atheistic growing up. I didn't believe in a God. I didn't believe in an afterlife. I didn't believe in anything like that. You know, once your brain's dead, that's it. You're gone. And then I ended up having anxiety and depression. I ended up suicidal with a breakdown, and I came close to taking my life. I was too frightened of death because I thought, you know, it's nothing. Experience gone forever, and that terrified me. That's why I didn't take my own life. And because I'd been there, I started kind of, I guess once you've been at the bottom, and you have to force yourself through every day knowing that you can't take your life.
Exactly. It was like a dark night of the soul you went through.
Yeah. And you have to learn this kind of thing as a means of survival. And it enough open you up to things that you realise you've been assuming all your life that might not actually be the case.
Right.
And it takes a trauma to really open you up to it.
Right. And, you know, once you process that trauma and kind of look at it objectively, like maybe like what lesson did I learn from that? I mean, trauma kind of, it is a tool to awaken you spiritually.
Yeah, it is.
Like near-death experiencers, yes, the spiritual part was beautiful, but you're going to deal with the trauma from the physical end of it. Because like you just almost died. Like you're going to have trauma issues, you know? And it is, you know, I've been there like to the bottom, and I like I said, you know, I would never commit suicide because like, I feel I'd be sent back to earth to relearn every lesson I ever had to learn. And I'm not freaking doing that again. So I was, you know, I don't want people to think when I say you don't go to hell for suicide, like obviously though, you want to live. Like you just have to find a reason to push through those feelings. Like, you know, and sometimes you get brought down that far because you're going through an awakening. And like, when you get through it, you're going to see everything's going to look different. Everything's going to feel different. It's almost like you just have to drain out everything, you know, to refill with all this stuff you're about to learn, you know? So, you know, I don't want anybody to think, because I, you know, like I said, I've worked with cases of suicide and stuff when I was in the morgue, and it can be traumatic for a soul. You don't want to do that. So like, I know right now, like I even on my Mystical Mama page, like suicide rates rise at this time of the year. And now you got COVID on top of it. Like, so just like, you know that you're never alone, and don't be afraid to talk about what you're going through, because I think some people fall into like this is the end of the world, and like there's so many people right now I think that are ending their lives because they think that this is it and it's never going to get better. But like, turn off your TV first of all. Disconnect from the outside world. Go inward right now. This is the time to heal, not pay attention to the news and shit, because like that will drive you nuts. Shut it all out, go out in nature and connect with yourself again, because we have a lot of people have lost themselves to all of this crap. And this is why the suicide rate is rising. It's a lot of like just lost, scared souls who they're done.